Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Why Not Today podcast. This is where real conversations about courage, business, mindset, community, and really taking action on what matters most happen. I have over 30 years experience mentoring women in business. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is we're not lacking ideas, especially these days. We're lacking clarity, consistency, support, accountability, community, and especially taking action. Like, why not today? And why not today exists to help women simplify overwhelm, take consistent action toward forward. So we talk about momentum is built with the small, consistent actions, not the big things, but the daily actions. Relationships work the same way. Business growth and meaningful connection both require intentional action over time. And if you want more, learn more about Why Not Today, you can check it all out at whynotTodayMovement.com. And that's where everything you want to know about Why Not Today sits. But today we're going to talk about building your tribe and meaningful relationships as adults. So last week I talked about your tribe and just who's in your tribe. We kind of talked about big picture, and it came about because of energy conversations at the Loudoun Economic Development Summit that was last week. And there was lots of great conversations, opening up about business struggles, pivots. Our speaker talked about failures and things that we've screwed up. And what that reminded me in last week's episode is that people are craving connection. And then after I recorded my episode, I listened to a podcast from Robbins, and she had a woman, her name is Kasley Killam. And they talked about loneliness, social health, and adult friendships. And after listening to this, I thought, you know what? Last week kind of talked about your tribe. And this week, I want to go one step further and talk about creating your tribe and how that's done. It comes super naturally to me. It's kind of a joke. My sister said something the other day about getting new friends. She's like, you don't need that anymore. But I love new friends and love making connections and never met a stranger. But that doesn't come naturally for everybody. And some people look at me like I'm crazy when I'm talking to strangers and making those connections. And so I think today, especially, people are more unconnected because we're sitting behind screens, we're on Zoom calls, we're not physically talking to people. People are feeling lonely. Entrepreneurs, especially vulnerable because we often work alone. And so you don't have that office to go to, you don't have other people to share ideas. And so that community connection is so important. And that something just popped in my head that I live in Reston, Virginia. If you've ever been here, it's a planned community planned by a man named Robert E. Simon. So it's called Reston. I know you're thinking, what does this have to do with building my tribe? But he intentionally designed Reston with shopping centers, although I think there's only one that really still exists in this with this concept, and that's where I live. And the concept was that it's not a strip mall. There's not parking spaces in front of stores. And so you literally have to get out of your car and walk in. And guess what? You get to see people. You get to talk to people. So he started Reston 63 years ago. And I think we're at that point now. We need to get rid of those strip malls and really have conversations, talk to people. I remember one day it was cold, so I'll give myself credit for that. And I was at a strip mall and I had to go 3 stores in the strip mall, but they were strategically located at 3 different places. So I literally got in and out of my car 3 times. Now, my father would have killed me if he would have known that, but luckily he didn't. But so we're lonely and more than ever, and there's actually an epidemic. And they say 1 out of 6 Americans feel lonely most or all of the time. Think about that. 1 in 6 Americans. 79% of adults say making friends as an adult is difficult. And the U.S. Surgeon General is warning about loneliness and isolation. I actually listened to a podcast interviewing him and saying what a problem it is. There was a Harvard study, and I think I mentioned this last week, that talked about, it was a longitudinal study looking at people's lives, their health, their happiness, how long they lived, all the things. And they tried to see what the common thread of people that had a good life. And it wasn't money, it wasn't status, it wasn't connection. Although they started the study interviewing white males at Harvard, but then they expanded it. But really what they found is meaningful relationships were the common thread that made a difference. And so building a tribe isn't just about networking. We actually had a great conversation in my Why Not to Inner Circle this week about networking and what it really means. And connection impacts your confidence, your courage, your motivation, your mental and your social health. And it gives you resilience when you have those, you have connections. So we're never meant to do this alone, and especially not meant to do business alone. What we're missing, I think, is the water cooler conversations. Now, when I worked, which I left my corporate job 26 years ago, but it was going to grab a coffee, go to the copier, and you had those conversations talking to people. You had people around you. We went to lunch together. We probably spent way too much money going out to lunch. That's a whole nother subject. We did fun things as a group. I remember once Friday, my boss was like, let's all go out back and play basketball. One day he put red Solo cups all around the office, and we had a putt-putt golf tournament in there. Another office I worked for before, once a month, we had a Friday happy hour with a themed happy hour. So we did fun things together. I remember my boss, now good friend, going in her office and sitting across from her at the desk, putting my feet up, talking about work, but talking about life. You knew people's lives. I know when I started my Mary Kay business, we used a telephone and we actually called people and they answered their phone and they talked to you. So not only did I know my customers, my team members, but I knew their husbands, I knew their kids, I knew their life. And I don't think we know that these days. I was listening to a podcast, as you can tell, I listen to a lot of podcasts, the other day, and it was talking about building your personal brand. And if you have a company, building it with your employees first. Do they know who you are? Do they get you? And this woman that was talking, her name's AJ Vaden, and she was talking about somebody in her staff. They were having just a quick conversation, and she was asking her about how she became an entrepreneur. And she went on to explain that her parents were entrepreneurs, her grandparents, she got it naturally. That's all she knew. And so when the conversation was done, the employee said, that makes so much sense. It makes me realize why you think the way you think. And so in Mel Robbins' podcast, she talked about proximity used to build friendships naturally. You know, as kids, we went to the same schools. We hung out with the same people in the bus stop. We played in the same playgrounds. When you worked in companies where people actually went to work, my brother talked to somebody, one of his employees the other day, and he was talking about where he worked before, and the person who was young, but I guess not that young, said, you mean you really went to an office every day? You know, that's a foreign concept these days. And so today there's remote work, there's Zoom calls, there's solopreneurs, so many people are running businesses, there's text and email communication. We're consuming content instead of participating in community. And so we're missing that intent, we're missing that natural connection, community. And what I found and what the podcast talked about is we have to intentionally create connection, because isolation quietly becomes the normal. And I know for me, I'm a people person. I love my people, but sometimes it's easy to sit on the couch on a Friday night and not go out after a long day. When people invite you out somewhere, you're like, I would love to go, but I'm too tired. And you know what? You're never going to remember sitting on your couch, but you remember going out with friends and the memories and fun and the laughter. So really, your tribe these days is not found instantly. It does take time. It's built gradually through that consistency, curiosity, getting to know people, following up, repeated interaction, and willingness to go first. So the important point is sometimes connection happens organically, but more often as adults, we have to lead the way intentionally. And most people are waiting for somebody else to make the first move. But I think if we all wait for the person to make the next move, we are not going to ever connect. So can you be that person that reaches out first, that calls first? And so we're going to talk about that. So think about, where do you feel disconnected? Is it business? Is it friendships? I know for me, I've got several friends that our lives just took different directions. We don't have similar interests and we just aren't as connected. Is it creativity? Wellness, accountability? Where do you feel disconnected? So you can't really build that tribe and that collection of people and friends if you don't identify where you're missing. I know recently Mahjong, a game, has been blowing up. So if you're listening to this in real time, it is May of 2026. But people are having, I know a friend that has a brewery teaches it. There's a co-working group or meeting place that has classes on it. My mom was invited to play. There's even a Hallmark movie about it. And so I think people are missing that connection, sitting and doing something, the good old days of the knitting circles or, quilting. People aren't doing those things. We're spending our time on a phone, on a computer. So first think about, as you're going to build your people, where are they? You don't build connections sitting at home wondering where your people are. I have a friend of mine, Kathy Stevens, and she owned a Mary Kay business just like I did. And I remember her telling me one time her husband came home from work and she was sitting at her desk and he was looking under the desk, around the desk, over the desk. And he goes, "Guess what, Kathy? You don't have any customers there. Get out and go find them." So where are the people? Is it a networking group? And I know I've talked about this many times. Like there's some that I like and some that aren't for me. Check it out. Check it out a couple times. Are there workshops? Volunteer opportunities is a great way to build people with similar interests. My sister has Down syndrome. So for me, I've kind of naturally gravitate towards groups that support people with disabilities. Is it a church group? Do you have a book club? Is it fitness classes? I actually have some great friends still, and the person that recruited me into Mary Kay because of a gym class I went to a long, long time ago. Is it conferences? Sometimes I've gone to conferences as events, and it's not the speaker that I get inspired by, or although, you do get inspired and learn, but really it's the friends you make. I have a good friend of mine, Heather, who I met at a retreat, and we had a funny story about that, and we became fast friends because of that. Is it hobby groups, which I mentioned? And then things that I intentionally do. I host a monthly luncheon called Why Not Today Connects because I feel like we're missing community and connection. So if you're in Northern Virginia and want to join, let me know. Workshops is something else I put together. And yes, they are virtual, but you are making connections. I have a Facebook group called Why Not Today Connects, literally to help people connect. And I've been thinking a lot about that group and how we can build better connections. I think one of the best ways to get to know people that my dad was a master of is asking people where they're from. And I was born in Buffalo, New York, and I've lived in Reston since I was 2. So I'm not really, wouldn't say from Buffalo, but I can't tell you how many people I run into that are from Buffalo. And it's that instant connection. If you run into somebody, I went to Virginia Tech. If I meet somebody that went to Virginia Tech, even though we could go years apart, it's that connection. I met somebody the other day that grew up in Reston, went to the same high school. We didn't hang out in the same circles. We didn't know each other, but I'm sure we have a gazillion connections. And now we're even more connected because we found that mutual connection. And then, I love going to the Million Cups networking event. That's one of my favorite in Northern Virginia. And then the Inner Circle, and that is a coaching program, and it's to build the community and connection, but also help us move our business forward with systems and strategy and lateral training. And so being out and about and noticing the people and being intentional. There was somebody years ago, and I'll put her name out here, Maggie Parker, and she was an executive at Comstock probably at that point, and she was sharp as can be and a little intimidating, but I want to get to know who that woman is, that Maggie Parker. So I remember one day I was supposed to volunteer at an event, Taste of Reston, and a friend of mine was here visiting from out of town from high school, and I said, I have to go do this. And he said, do you really have to do it? I'm like, yeah, I committed. He's like, is it going to help your business? I'm like, I don't know, but I committed. And lo and behold, I stood at a tent next to Maggie Parker, and I pulled out a lipstick at one point. She's like, Mary Kay, do you sell Mary Kay? I'm like, as a matter of fact, I do. And she knew my dad. We built that connection. She became a customer, and she's a great friend now. And so you just never know where that person's going to be, but you got to be out there looking for them. So many of the most meaningful relations in my life happen because I intentionally put myself in rooms where connections could happen. I get out there and meet people. I spent a lot of time during COVID at Smith Mountain Lake. I intentionally joined the Chamber of Commerce because I knew that's where people were. And I met Holly, and Holly became a friend, and Holly had a girls' taco night, and I got invited to that pretty quickly. And people were like, how did you know Holly? And how did you get invited? I've been trying to get invited to that party forever. But, it was because I was out there and I was asking and building those connections and not just waiting to be invited. And then something else that I heard years ago is become a regular somewhere. So friendship actually grows through familiarity. It and familiarity creates comfort, and comfort creates conversation. So attend an event consistently. Like I go to a Million Cups consistently because I want to get to know the people in the room. And sometimes it takes 2, 3 meetings before I have a conversation with someone. Return regularly. Maybe it's a coffee shop that you want to get out of your house and work. Go sit at the coffee shop. Get to know people who works there. Mel Robbins talked about she kept in her phone when she was trying to make new connections in a new town. She kept a note in her phone of the coffee shop and the people she met and their names and kind of a description so she could greet them by name and build those connections. So you don't build your tribe by showing up just once and deciding it didn't work. You got to try again and go to the places, as I said, where they are. And then the other thing that I will say my sister is a master at is asking better questions. Surface conversations keep people disconnected. I do not love when people are like, oh, how are you? And you answer, okay, or fine, or busy. Like, really, what does that say? So maybe asking better questions. What have you been excited about lately? What are you looking forward to? I always ask, when I'm DMing people, even that's a social media kind of still behind the screen, but I'm still connecting with people. I ask them like on a Wednesday, how's your week going? Is it too fast or too slow? Getting to know people, getting to know them better. I always used to train my team, like to get to know their customers when they called somebody, when we used to be able to really call. If they find that thing in common, like we hear a dog bark, oh my gosh, you've got a dog, I've got a dog. And so finding those things in common. So ask better questions. What has been challenging for you? What kind of people are you hoping to meet? So if they're new to a networking group, who do you want me to connect you with? One question I ask when I meet with people is, how can I support you? I asked that question to somebody one day and she's like, nobody has ever asked me that question. So curiosity builds connection faster than trying to impress people. Ask them questions, get to know them. People feel connected when they feel like they're seen and heard. So find that mutual connection, and then find out a little bit about them, which makes people really connect to you when they want to be around you. And then follow up before the connection fades. Be the first person to send the text, connect on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I love to meet new people. And then I set up a time to meet them for coffee and get to know them. And it's not like, hi, it's Leslie, and I do this and this and this and this and this. Buy from me. No, I want to know where they grew up. I want to know where they network. I want to know about their business. I want to know about their family. Get to know people. The other day I met somebody and we were talking about sales and she didn't really love sales. And so I listened to a podcast about that and I shot a copy of it. If you see an article about something, a podcast you think would be interesting, somebody send the resource and then make the introduction. When you meet somebody, don't, and you think they'd be a good connection, make the introduction and then follow up again if you don't hear from them. I used to pride myself in the fact that I got to back to people so quickly. Well, that is not so today because there's way too many ways to communicate and things just fall through the cracks. And it could be coming through when it's a bad time. I had somebody I was trying to connect with and I really thought she didn't like me and she was blowing me off because she was not following through. Well, one thing I know for sure is the longer people don't follow through, the more embarrassed they get and they're not going to follow through. So she had some life issues happening and she was embarrassed because she hadn't followed through with me. So I thought she was mad at me. And didn't like me. And I actually even told my friend, I'm like, I don't know what I did to her, but it's interesting. I ran into her at another event and afterwards she clicked a picture of me at the event and sent it to me. And that was the door, I think, she said, I want to connect with you. So of course we did. So the tribe is built on following up. And if there's somebody you like, somebody's energy, you like it, ask them. If there's somebody that you want advice from, mentoring from, connections from, ask them. More people are willing to help, but you just got to ask. Relationships deepen because someone keeps the conversation going intentionally. I often also, if somebody pops up in my head, I'll send them a text. My friend Jody, she's really good at when she's sitting in line at Starbucks. She told me, since somebody she thinks of, she'll just send them a quick text, thinking about you. Hope you have a great day. Sending somebody a text on their birthday. If you have, or a DM instead of just something on their thread, because everybody's doing it and it gets a little overwhelming. But, what's those little things you could do? Say hello to people, say good morning, talk to people, build those relationships. And then the next step is stop waiting for other people to go first. As I said, most adults feel awkward socially. Most people are nervous. There's a lot of introverts out there. And even though I'm an extrovert, I still feel uncomfortable walking into a big room. Much better one-on-one. And so socially confident people are often simply willing to act first. And sometimes courage is social courage. So be courageous, make a new friend. I When I walk my dog and she's walking past other dogs and other people, there's some, like one when we stopped today, and she's like, I got to come over and get my loves from Iggy Pop. Like, she just walks up, she was like, will you be my friend? And it's so easy. So can we do that? And do not just build connections, become a connection. Encourage people, introduce people, welcome people, notice a person standing alone, check in with somebody if you're thinking of them, you haven't heard from them in a while, encourage people, and invite people into conversations. Do not just look for your tribe. Why don't you create one? If there's a group of people, I actually have done this many times in my life, as you can imagine. I created a mastermind. I've created some girls' trips and different things. Like, create that tribe of people you like. And I remember my friend Mary Foley, she did a focus group years ago, which I was just thinking about doing that again for something. But, to get people's feedback. And that was years ago, and I still remember it. And then just be more real. Relationships require honesty. People want to know that we're real, that we've had struggles, that we've had pivots, that things aren't always perfect. And they want to know when things are going on in their life, in our life. And it's okay to ask for help, because often we're afraid to ask for help. So it's okay. People connect through honesty and not perfection. So I challenge you to write down people that make your tribe list or your connection list or your friend circle, people that energize you, people that you admire, people that you want to connect with, communities you want to spend time with, and reach out to 3 people this week. And sometimes I love to connect with people and go for a walk. I get my exercise. I had my friend Kim come over here a couple months ago with her dog. We took the dogs for a walk together. We had a drink afterward, got our exercise. We were able to connect. So find the way to connect with someone and invite somebody to do something this week. So reach out to 3 people this week. And, reach out to the people, think about those people, attend an event or a gathering that you don't really feel like going, but you never know who's going to be in the room. Follow up with somebody new. Before I started recording this, I sent an email to somebody I met at a networking event yesterday. I'm not going to wait, because then you forget and then you're embarrassed and then it falls through the cracks. Maybe you could introduce 2 people, connect some people that you need to meet, introduce me to someone, or connect with me. I'd love to get together with you if you're local, or we can jump on Zoom, and then invite somebody into a conversation or room. And sometimes your tribe finds you naturally, but more often you build it intentionally through acts of courage and consistent action. So I hope this encouraged you today, and I hope it gave you some ideas. And if you want some ideas and some help, I'm here. So thank you for listening. Share this episode with a friend and say, you know what, I'd love to connect with you. Check this episode out and let's find a way to connect. Leave a review. That helps so more people can see this and we can grow the podcast. I think Apple's the best place to leave a review. And then if you want to join my community on Facebook, if you're not there, it's Why Not Today Connects is the Facebook group. And you can always reach out to me. You can find it on my website, which is whynotTodayMovement.com. And consistent action matters in relationships and business. Community helps people stay in momentum, and support and accountability matter. And so, as I said, I've got the Why Not Today community. I do workshops. We've got one coming up on May 21st on things to help you attract clients easily on social media. I do coaching. I have an inner circle program. So many ways to connect. So let's connect. Let's keep this conversation going. Sometimes the smallest step forward starts by asking yourself the question, why not today? So thanks again for joining me, and have a great rest of your day, and check out some of the other episodes and check out everything we're doing. And yeah, why not today? Reach out to me. Let's connect. Bye.